Yeah, Steve Hogue Metalworks. And I've been here at this location in Ventura for 7 years. Prior location for 20 down
It's
in
all
the South Bay.
Southern California.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
Since you've been here, what's been your favorite part of working on cars?
It depends on the day. And but one of the things that I've always been fascinated with and liked is the research. So I've been fortunate enough to work on a number of one-off cars that were one of ones. So those are fun to do the research on. And and just very rare stuff. So just chasing down the information and getting whatever we might need, photographs, or actually getting my eyes on a car, and that sort of thing. And then it's all just the flow. Some days it's just the pattern making, the shaping, whether it's the fit, trim in, welding, metal finishing. That's all just kind of a mood thing. Yeah.
So your projects a lot of them are longer term than most guys. Has it always been like that for you, or when did you kind of transition into more selected?
It's been like that for a long time. And because during, like, say for instance, the 90s, I was still doing a lot of the big coach built, like Pebble Beach style stuff. And by that decade, a lot of what would be considered not even a parts car were being dug out, and hey, we need to make a car. So they were like long term, a lot of bodies getting made. Because it was just the remnants of the leftovers of what had been dug through for 2 or 3 decades up to that point. They've pretty much always been a lot of long term. And then during the years, during the 90s, we did a lot of the contemporary hot rod, street rod stuff, and customs where they were giving us renderings, and it'd be like, oh, just cut the car, cut 3/4 of the car off and make the car that they want. Or and with the contemporary hot rod thing, they wanted everything super nice, because those are going to be the shiny, pretty cars and all that. So, it's pretty much all been long term. Yeah, we get the in and outs a little bit here and there, but not that much of that.
Yes. So I know you've told me that you kind of have some of your own designs for your own car, right? Can you talk a little bit about that, or do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I can talk about that. Yeah. So that's the stuff for the La Luz design company, and so I'm involved in the concept of that, and then I'll build the bodies, and I'll build the chassis on these cars as well. So that's kind of the deal there. And then I'm working with 2 designers right now, Keith Coucher out of Santa Monica and Alberto Hernandez out of San Francisco, industrial designers. So I'm looking forward to that.
What's that like, working with like an industrial designer who's like kind of on the other end of things?
I really like that because they're both early industrial design guys, so they're traditional designers. The designers of today are very digital, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just not my gig. It's easier for me to work with the traditional type of designer. So the way that they do their design work, the way that we work together, we're speaking the same language, and it's all analog work. It's not digital work. Keith's doing a little bit of digital work now. The other stuff he did for me decades prior was all just hand stuff. Alberto's all hand, and so they're easy to work with. I've had some conversations with, like, years ago, actually that one rendering up there of that hot rod, this would have been early 2000s. I'm building this aluminum 32 5-window coupe Ford car, and I go to a national car show. I have the thing sitting there on its like cart, A lot of the panels are built hanging on the buck that I made all out of steel. The rendering sitting there in the car. This industrial designer for Chrysler came by, and he's looking at it. He was asking me, he said, "So you got blueprints and drawings for this car?" I said, "No, just that rendering on the easel." And he said, "Well, how do you know that the proportions are correct?" And so he's looking at the car. I said, "Do they look correct on the car that you're looking at?" He said, "Yeah, it looks really good." I go, "Then I guess they're correct, right?" And he kind of gave me a puzzled look. And so we had some more conversation. And then I said, "Hey," I said, because he hadn't been out of design school that long. I asked him, I said, did you guys cover when you were in school, like the evolution of how it got to where now you guys are doing all computerized and digital stuff? It was like the beginnings of that. And he's like, "No, we didn't really go over that." So it's like, okay. So it was a different conversation.
So like to that point of, building something from literally just some 2D references, right?
Yeah, kind of like 3D, I guess.
Yeah. So like this car behind you, you're doing that, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
And so can you talk a little bit about like the condition of that car when you got it and like that process of translating reference photos to like this in front of us?
A little bit. A little bit. So yeah. Well, so this one's one of 14 cars, and all 14 are the same, but they're not the same. Each car is a bit different, and just different nuances. It's just part of the car. And handmade car. They were just a race car at the time. Those things rolled out of the coach builder. You could look at the pictures in the books coming out of the coach building shops, and they're crooked because it's just a race car. They're not trying to make a pretty car, and it's a tool. So, but now everybody wants them to look symmetrical and nice and so on. So we just reference whichever picture of whatever little point in its race history that they want the car to look like, because they get modified and crashed and straightened all the time. So everything's changing. And, but yeah, I just have to go off the photographs, look at the other cars. I'd been able to look at a handful of the other cars, and just with the other cars and some of the other stuff, I could put together dimensions and parameters, and then just work within those dimensions and parameters and make it visual to the eye, that whatever pictures they want it to look like.
Yeah. So you're not carrying on a 3D scanner?
Yeah, no 3D scanners, none of that.
Using your brain and your eyes for that?
Yeah, just, yeah. It's all visual. It's all visual. Yeah, because we see the car with our eyes, so it doesn't matter. We can use all the technology in the world. At the end of the day, people are visualizing a car. That's all we're trying to do is please the eye.
And then you talked a little bit about like your future car builds, or your own personal stuff, but is there anything like in the future that you're looking forward to specifically that's kind of outside of like where you're at now? Because I know you're kind of wrapping up a group here. What's on the horizon that's like got you excited?
Public service announcement: no more 356s. So yeah, I'm getting away from doing these early 356 cars. I've done enough over the past 15, 16 years, whatever it's been, and then doing these new cars, boutique cars. I'm excited about because I've spent maybe 15 years really working within the box of restoration without a lot of creative work. And so I need to do more creative work. And so I'm excited about that. And then the freedom of it, and just being involved in the concept and the engineering of the cars, that's exciting. And then it's like a fun adventure. And then creating like a really cool car, creating a car that, I think is kind of cool. It's all in the eye of the beholder, right? Some people are gonna be like, "That's not my thing." Other people are like, "Wow, that's really hot." And but creating a car that's that has a real purpose and is a real performing piece of engineering. That's and just with my own touches, stuff that's not copied from anything, and its own platform, not built on another chassis. And I'll leave it there.
Could you talk about like what other cars might inspire your direction?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm inspired by a lot of different cars. So this El Tejon car, more will be revealed on that. It'll be released to the public soon. Believe it or not, it was inspired by, just going to sound crazy, but one of the Pumas. Are you familiar with the Pumas? So the Puma was this kind of a kit car type of a car on a Volkswagen Pan. They made them in, it was Brazil. They were fiberglass bodied cars. They were, for the time, what they were. But there was one of the Puma bodies that really was fairly decent looking, I thought, appealing. And somebody had put it in the computer and modeled it, where they had put like some 930 flares on it, some Fuchs, and it's like, wow, that car's starting to look like something. It was a little overdone, but it was starting to look like something. And that just like sparked this idea in my mind of a car I could build. So anyway, the El Tejon doesn't look anything like that car. But as strange as it sounds, that car inspired it. And so this El Tejon car is going to be a monocoque style chassis, sheet metal, and then alloy body, all Porsche, like 911, 1969-70 components and drivetrain is the deal. And then the second car we're working on right now, Alberto's doing the design on that. That car is going to be called El Zorro. That car was inspired by De Tomaso's first car, the Valunga, which was prior to the Pantera and the Mangusta. And so the Valunga was, at the time, it's before Ford had the 2-liter Capri Pinto motors, so they were using the early Cortina, little 1.5 Cortina motor, mid-engine with Volkswagen gearbox upside down. And they were a cool little car. And there was 3 prototypes. They made like, I don't know, less than 40 cars altogether. So those 3 prototype cars were aluminum bodied. So actually a customer of mine that Pantera belongs to had one of the alloy bodies at one point. That was what kind of inspired me years ago. I said, I'm going to build something around that concept. So what I'm doing is a chassis somewhat similar to what they did, but an upgrade in my view. So like a monocoque passenger compartment with basically tubular subframes, front and rear, that bolt into the monocoque, which is very similar to like the E-Type Jaguars. And then small car, 90-inch wheelbase, and with the mid-engine, like 2-liter Ford Pinto Capri motor, on steroids with the big head and Webers and all that. And then 914 gearbox, mid-engine gearbox. And then we're making all of our own suspensions and rear uprights and all that. So yeah, that'll be a cool car. Very cool car. Very lightweight. Both these cars are going to be in the 200, a little over 200 horse, but they're both going to be the 1,600 pound car.
Is there maybe anything you could talk about, like what kind of got you into the Porsche world? Because it seems like majority of the stuff you've been doing is around Porsche. And so what kind of started that?
So that's been the past 15, 16 years, the Porsche thing. And prior to that, I didn't go anywhere near 356 cars just because they were just so rusty and beat up, and the value wasn't really there yet for people to, want to really go through them and do them correctly and thoroughly. So once the pre-A cars kind of got to that point, then that's when I got involved in it. And and then I mean, I always wanted to do something like this, any of the spiders. And then that opportunity came, and I had the opportunity to be involved with 3 different 911R cars, and one of them was very thorough. Yeah, so that was fun.
Are we allowed to talk about
Oh
that
yeah,
one?
yeah, the Pantera.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I shot one of those recently. Pretty sweet one. But I've noticed guys my age are like starting to gravitate towards those things. Have you seen that in your world, more gravitation towards that car specifically?
Yeah, I think just those cars across the board, because just the cars ahead of it, so to speak, in value, those cars start to go like into the stratosphere. So these cars start filling in, and as they're filling in, following these cars that went like this, they're still at a obtainable price point for a lot of people, and then the desire is there for them. And yeah, so this one's an early one though. This is the push button door car with the early chassis. So I can't remember. I think it's just like 63 of them or something. The early car like this one. The smooth hood, the little baby bumperettes, that sort of deal. So it's a cool car. That car had been banged around a lot. It was taken apart in the 70s, sat in the garage up until this restoration here. And but it had its share of little smash ups and in and out of some body shops during those years, and some crazy work. So but yeah, it wasn't real super rusty, it was just banged up more than rusty. The normal little rust spots that those Panteras get. It's the first one I've ever done. I'm familiar with them because I've had friends that have done them before, so I was pretty familiar with them. And just that sense, not thoroughly familiar. Now I'm pretty thoroughly familiar. But so we just had to build a whole new body for the front, the new rockers, new bottom quarters sections, and then just repair work in the tail of the car, and then we just make new pop-up skins for the headlights and new hood skin, because it's easier than trying to repair that old stuff, just to reskin it.
Where did you get your metal shaking working knowledge from? Where did that kind of begin?
Just out of interest. When I was young, I was always interested in the fabrication part. And I was very interested in the mechanical stuff, but that's, screwing around with your own cars as a teenager and young person. And then, but no, it was the fab work was what I was really attracted to. And so I just chased down that knowledge and just found the guys that were ahead of me that were really good at it, and just watched what they were doing. And I just really just emulated what they were doing and kind of got it like that. And then in the early days, like in the 80s, there was a lot of people probably won't know, but anyway, there was a metal shaper by the name of Scott Knight. I don't know how old Scott was at that time. He would have been, we were like in our 20s. So he'd have been in his 40s. And, he'd been doing it his whole life. And so he was doing some like workshops, seminar type workshops. So we'd go hit those. And then just go around, hang out with the other guys that were just making new bodies and just pick it up. So it's pretty much self-taught type of gig. Just, of course, with people that were willing to give you pointers and point you in the right direction. And then just going after it, and that's always what I tell other people too. You just got to dive in, man. That, to me, like building small, like pedal cars or something, there's nothing wrong with it. That's, somebody wants to get involved in that. But it wasn't for me, because I was like, I need to know how to build real panels, real cars. I could spend hours and hours building small projects. I've taught myself how to build small projects, because the worst I could do on the big car is screw up a panel and learn from that, and then learn how to do it correctly.
So outside of cars, what else do you like to do out here in Ventura in Southern California?
Surfing. Yeah. Now that my body doesn't let me surf as much anymore. Not as much surfing, but I'm okay, man. I had 50 years of my life of surfing every day, pretty much. So that's not bad. I'm cool with that. You know, always lived close to the beach. I never lived more than a bicycle ride from the beach. So that's a fortunate way to grow up and get to live and enjoy Southern California culture.
So you showed me some pretty cool surfboards in there. Can you talk a little bit about like why you have that board and like you've mentioned when you were a kid? Yes.
Yeah. Just it was just the whole Zephyr thing and Jeff Hogue living in the neighborhood. We all were in. That was like, you know, he was our guy, and yeah, I mean, just we like all had Zephyr surfboards, and that was just like neighborhood shaper. So yeah, now that stuff's all legendary and all that stuff. But it's just like growing up around the Shelby shop. It was just like the cool race shop, and then even who else was in the neighborhood there was Hill and Bond's restoration facility was right there in Venice Mar Vista area, Playa del Rey, or it's kind of whatever, but that right there. So yeah, it's stuff just, yeah, it was just neighborhood stuff.
Out here in Ventura, who are some of your neighbors that are kind of maybe inspire you, or people that you hang with, or that are kind of in this world? Because I feel like Ventura has always been kind of a hub for automotive custom stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm inspired by all kinds of people all over, and there's a lot of people in the neighborhood here that I've connected with since I've been here, and yeah, just and then now everybody's kind of, you know, the camaraderie thing where little meetups and get-togethers and yeah, that's been interesting because it's like I've met people, we're only within blocks of each other, but we had never met before. But some of them we've known of each other, but and then the opportunity comes up just to meet in person and hang out and go to each other's place and look at each other's stuff. And
you messaged your buddy that was popping in earlier about once maybe one or two of these cars wrapped up, they might go over to Peter's place to get shot. Is that going to be the first time you've had Peter shooting for you? Or?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. And then that's, you know, the owner's deal with Peter, and we'll take him over there. But yeah, I have some of my own stuff I would like to have shot there too. Like especially that El Tejon chassis. Once that monocoque chassis is built, I want to have just that chassis shot. Be really nice before the whole car's together.
So up over there on the shelf, you got this old Porsche that you recently got, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So my personal car, just bought it a couple weeks ago. Old 912 rusted out tub, completely stripped. Just had this suspension stuff on it, so I had four wheels and I could get on the transport. And so yeah, so it's going to be a hot rod 911, my own brand, my own ideas. A lot of aluminum panels are going to go on it. No fiberglass, super lightweight car. I figure I can get that car down around 1,600 pounds with a hot little, 2-liter twin plug Weber high revving setup in it, with like RS flares and like RS size wheels. So yeah, it's gonna be really cool.
What made you pull the trigger on that car?
Just having had a 911 in the 90s for 8 years or however long it was, and the 78 SC Euro car I had, it was a lot of fun, 3-liter car, and I just want a door slamming hot rod, badass lightweight car that I don't have to worry about. And, it doesn't have to be super shiny, super pretty, just be all about the business and fun. Yeah.
How long do you think that's going to take it?
It's probably going to be a year down the road before I could start the car. I think once I start the car, in the meantime, I could collect the stuff that I'm going to need. And I think that car probably, I don't know, I could probably get that car put together in a year and a half, I think. Yeah, I'm hoping. It shouldn't be too bad. I mean, 911's kind of cool because you can pretty much buy everything. You just have to adjust it to make it all fit. So it's kind of like putting Legos together. It's not like these where I just have to make the whole car from scratch.
Yeah.
So that's pretty straightforward. And I have my game plan set. So yeah, should work out pretty smooth. Yeah.
Well, maybe when that thing's done, I'll come and give
Just shoot that.
Yes. That'd be badass. Take a couple photos today and then
Some flames coming out the pipes with the thing sideways. Yeah.
cool, man. Thanks for doing this.
You're welcome.